You motivated? You motivated? You winning. You know they hate it. Hold up. Fierce. She's fierce. She's that girl from a west side girl to a south side girl to a north side girl to a east side girl. She's fierce. She's fierce. You are now listening to the Fierce Female Network.
Welcome to the Fierce Female Network. I'm your host, Fierce Manson, and today is Saturday, baby. And it is Restore Your Brain, baby. We're going to get your brain restored on today. And listen, honey, while we're in the process, I'm going to get my brain restored too, all up in here. Listen, y'all. It is Saturday. Restore your brain, baby. It is December the 20th, 2025. It is 1 p.m. on the Central Standard Time Zone and 2 p.m. on the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Y'all know what I'm going to say. The Eastern Standard Time Zone is the time zone that rocks my socks off, honey. You know I got to push it on up to the ATL. It's a whole bunch of folks walking down in the ATL that need their brains restored. You know what I mean? So listen. I'm super excited. Listen, I'm up on the ceiling, y'all. The computer is sitting on the ceiling. That's why my brain needs to be restored. It's not on my desk. It's on the ceiling. That's how excited I am. Listen, y'all remember that song, Dancing on the Ceiling? That's what I'm doing, baby. Listen, y'all. I have with me on today Mr. Mark Burnett. Oh, my God. When I came across him, I literally grew about 2 feet. I went from being 5'2" to being about 5'11", and that's more than 2 feet. Listen. Let me tell you something. Mark Burnett is fantastic. He is phenomenal. He has come up with something that listen, I'm not making this up. This is the truth. He's tested natural supplements for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. Japanese led to the discovery of a natural cure. American ingenuity invented the way to make it pure, and my brain restore was born. Listen, y'all. I always say, you know, dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson, they are nasty diseases. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna give Mark Burnett the floor a moment, but I want you guys to know my family has been touched by dementia and Alzheimer's in a huge way. So of course, I'm all about research and finding new things. I know there's been a breakthrough, and the FDA have approved a new pill. There's a medication that's out. I'm not sure if neurologists have started giving prescriptions out for that pill, but I know it has been approved because a source of mine has said so, and his name is Ian. I can give his name out. He's Ian, and he's in Washington, D.C., and that's all that he does. That's all that he does is work hard for dementia and Alzheimer's, and he is fantastic and phenomenal. Also, one of my friends, family member, been diagnosed with Parkinson's. One of them have just, he's passed on. So listen, this is huge for me. This is really huge. Mark, how are you on this Saturday afternoon?
I am doing great, and I am also right outside of Washington, D.C. I can kind of stand on my roof and see the Capitol.
Oh, my goodness. How about that? That's awesome. That's fantastic. You and Ian could almost get together and go to lunch.
Well, I was thinking about that when you mentioned his name. We would probably have a great conversation and love to have you pass it on to him. That'd be fine.
Absolutely. I mean, Ian is the man when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's.
I'd love to.
Yeah,
I have been to the Alzheimer's Association marathon run right outside of Washington, D.C. I've been in the Michael J. Fox marathon run also in Washington, D.C.
Woo!
And this was the interesting thing. This is the cool thing about it. When I learned about this product, I started taking it in January. And I'll admit, I'm a little selfish. I took it myself. I didn't tell anyone else. But also, I had to make sure it worked first. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't just let something go out there and not work. And I had Alzheimer's and the gene for Alzheimer's, plus I had Parkinson's stage 3. So I was facing 2 horrible neurological diseases at the same time.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'll get into how I got one. I know how I got one. But the point being is I went out there I did a lot of research. My doctor was giving me the medicine from the 60s. I just was like, this isn't going to work. What's the long-term prognosis? And basically, you got to know my doctor, but they were down to the point of saying, well, you're not going to make it. That's it. And that's all it came down to. And you have to understand that is not something you want to hear. But when you're dealing with incurable diseases, of which all three of these are or have been, there's a great deal of excitement. And for me and the way I work, by the way my brain works, I went out there and started doing research. I came across research. I took the product myself for 6 months. I made it better. I refined it here in the U.S. and got it working. And I went from stage 3 Parkinson's to stage 1. And my Alzheimer's had completely disappeared. And it was like night and day. And when I was at that Michael J. Fox meeting, that's when people came up to me and said, you just ran that and you have stage 3 Parkinson's. How do I get what you got? And literally people were buying it from me before I even had a label for the jar.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, hold on, I'm not set up for all this. But I formed a company. We're now on Amazon. We're shipping international. We just got our first international shipment to Canada. And we have another one coming from London. The product is quite amazing, quite simple, with minimal side effects. And we can get into all that. I mean, you beat me up. You tell me what you want, your audience wants to hear. But it's amazing. That's all I can say at this stage.
That is amazing. I have a plethora of leads and people that will be excited to hear what you have. I've been connected, and I get their newsletter. What is it? Illinois traumatic brain injury. Anything with the brain, it just touches my heart because I've had issues as well because I had a massive brain aneurysm some years ago, back in 2007.
Right.
And of course, it shook my world all upside down. And, they told me, well, you may never be the same. Let me tell you something. They're right, because I'm still not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me, how did you get on this journey with this product? What started you? What was the beginning point for you?
Well, the beginning point was the fact that I was born at Camp Lejeune. And if any of us has looked through Google, you'll always see all these ads for, get $1 million settlement from Camp Lejeune because the water was poisoned. It had what's called TCE in it. And I had been born on the base in 1958, making me 67 right now. I should be retired, not doing this. But, when you find something, you share it. That's all I can say. And so I was contaminated with the water. My Parkinson's, one doctor put it down as definitely what caused my problem. I'm in litigation with the Camp Lejeune group. But what was disturbing to me was that my mom was on base when she got pregnant. She was on base in utero with me. And after a very tough second and third trimester, having problems, not knowing the water was causing these kind of problems, she eventually gave birth to me. But a lot of women gave birth on Camp Lejeune. And there's a whole, I think it's an NBC special or ABC special up on my website, mybrainrestore.com. You can go to it under My Journey and click it. But it shows all the children that died, all the miscarriages, all the spontaneous abortions that happened there because of the chemical in the water. And when my mom got done, what was eventually recommended to her, because they thought it was her, they called it toxemia at that time, they told her to get a hysterectomy. And when I found out about this when I was like 13 or 14, why do I have no brothers or sisters? My mom told me the story. And I was appalled. I just couldn't believe this, and I didn't know about the water. But now that I did, I actually opened up an estate for my mom to sue on her behalf because of that, because they forced her into getting a hysterectomy when all she had to do was move away from the base. That's all that was wrong. And it was horrible. And for me, I became the only child. But as I got older and I understood what was going on, and I came down with Parkinson's, was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I have the gene for Alzheimer's, so eventually I got the Alzheimer's. I went on a quest to break away from the norm. And I read about a Japanese medical research that had been done, which was very intense. I had to read it 4 times to understand it. And when I got done looking up all the words and letters, everything they did, basically the summary was they cured, and they said it, all the mice that they gave a natural substance to, that a fruit I had never heard of before, absolutely unbeknownst to me. They had given that seed to them, done in a special way, and it cured them all. They then dissected the mice as they do in these type of experiments and said everything that caused Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia with Lewy bodies and frontal dementia were gone. And they didn't get into how they cured it, but they were being paid by Big Pharma to invent probably like a $10,000 a month drug. They could not figure out Mother Nature. They couldn't beat it. So the project was basically set aside. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. I have these problems. I need to solve them. I can't go on doing what I'm doing. My doctor's already told me this is not going to work down road. It's just I'm giving you something, a Band-Aid, for something that's much worse. So I got a hold of that product that they used. I redesigned the way it was made so it'd stay ultra cold when it was being milled. It had to be milled down like a flour. And but it couldn't be hot. The scientists were very particular about it. It couldn't get heated in the process. So I came up with these ways to build it. I started taking it January of 2025, and I have stage 3 Parkinson's at this point, and I have Alzheimer's. And I was able to go in June of 2025, and my wife did not want me to go. And I said, I'm buying a pair of tennis shoes, and I'm going to go run the Michael J. Fox Marathon, even though I've never run in my life. I'm a couch potato. and I ran that, and I made it all the way through and got a medal at the end. And I beat it. That was the day I knew I'd gotten it. I won. And, you know, it was uplifting so much that people that were there that I did not know said they wanted to get the product. My brain restores, what I eventually called it, because that's what it did for me. I just called it what it did. And so I started essentially selling it, you know, to the people that wanted it. And they have now started reporting better strength and better endurance with Parkinson's. Alzheimer's, we're starting to see, you know, in myself, it was a huge change. In other people, they've been able to remember things better, and things are coming back to them a little bit. I haven't had as many dementia people get it, but I'd like to. I'd love to have Bruce Willis be part of this, you know. I mean, the people with severe dementia. But I think about what it can do for nursing homes. You think about that. You know, the nurses are overburdened. We have a shortage of nurses in the United States. And, you know, they're so overburdened, and it would be great to introduce something that's natural, that doesn't have the side effects that drugs have, that would help those people remember more things. Think of the burden that could be taken off a nursing home. It's huge. Taken off of caregivers, it would be huge. As a preventive, it would be huge. You know, as you said, you know, in many families, you know, this runs. And I would point out that Alzheimer's, according to Harvard Health, it's 2/3 of the people that get it are women. Alzheimer's. So that's Harvard Health pointing that out after they did their surveys. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it, and be glad to, of course, answer any questions you have about it. But, you know, we now have, you know, people from around the world ordering it. We just increased our ability to do that. We're up on Amazon. Our Amazon site doesn't look as pretty as I want it yet, but we're getting there. But it is up there. We got brand approval for there, so they'll protect our brand. And it's exciting because I had gotten Alzheimer's so bad, and this is a guy thing, okay? Your audience, I think, will appreciate this and find it funny. But I was driving down the road, and I'd driven down the road to go home for 20 years down the same road, and I got lost. I didn't know where I was. I did not know where to turn. And I'm like, these roads kind of seem familiar, but not enough for me to get home. And I spent around 20 minutes driving around, too manly to hit the button, Google, take me home. That's what I meant. And And eventually I got back home, but it scared me to death. It scared me. And that was part of the revelation of I've got to have something that takes care of this Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I've got to move forward, and I have to, develop it and try it myself. And once I was able to realize I didn't lose my keys anymore, I knew where everything was. I had taken a memory test and passed it extremely well. I knew I had beaten Alzheimer's. And you hear me now. I'm not stuttering like Parkinson's. I'm, sharp with any question. It's like being 40 again. That's all I can say.
Let me ask you this. I noticed you said there's a fruit.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And the name of that fruit, and I'll give it because I don't think anyone's really going to know what it is. They can look it up. It's Ziziphus. Zizipphus. Ziziphus. I'd never heard of this fruit. It was actually grown in China originally. It has made itself around the world with different cultivators, different versions of that fruit. It's not really well known outside of that area, but what I thought was interesting is the Japanese university did the test on a Chinese fruit. It's not even a fruit they grow. So to me, it was very unbiased. They had a reason they were focusing on that particular plant and that particular cultivator. In other words, to understand that cultivator idea is that there are 7,500 different varieties of apples, okay? And it sounds amazing, but that's how many different varieties there are. And if I told you the Granny Smith apple would cure you, and if you bought any of the others, it wouldn't. This is the same thing. You have to get the right version of the Ziziphus, which I found hard to get because in the United States, they grow hybrid versions. It doesn't work. And you need 1,800 seeds to make the preventive version, and you need 3,600 seeds for a 30-day supply to make the preventive or the 2X version that I take. That is a lot of labor to get those seeds. It's one seed per fruit, and the seed is inside a stone like a peach. So you have to dry it, crack it, and then you get one little baby seed, about the size of a 0 on your keyboard.
Oh, my.
Yes. No, it's incredibly small. And then you have to sort through all that. You have this husk you have to clean out and get out of the way. So it's very labor intensive to make it. And then we have to grind it the way we do it in an ultra cold, or I should say ultra chilled milled fashion, which we trademarked because it's a unique way of chilling it to keep in all the organic oils and all the components. Because the Japanese actually never figured out, what it was in it that was working. They never could isolate it. That's why it couldn't be made into a drug. It couldn't be patented. And I just went back to nature. I said, well, nature already provided. And in the 60s, Parkinson's medicine came from India. That's where that came from a plant. So to me, it was kind of a natural, this is possible. And it took me 6 months to get to the point I could run like that and get my strength back. The Alzheimer's took about that same time. I played my wife a memory game where you put all these animals' face cards down and then you mix it all up. You play with your kids with this. It's a kid's game. I played it when I was a kid. And you mix it all up and you got like 36 different animals and you have to match them. Then you have to remember where they're at. You can only turn over 2 cards at a time. And then your partner gets to pick 2 cards. Well, she thought she was going to beat me, because I have Alzheimer's, right? I can't remember where the cards are. I can't remember the pictures. And I couldn't. After taking this 6 months, I actually beat my wife in that game and she won't play anymore. She said, I'm not playing anymore. You beat me. I'm done.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Before on your journey to making this discovery, what was your background? What was your work background? What type of... Yes.
Originally, I was studying to be a veterinarian. I was already working at an animal hospital. Back then, this was, way back in 75, somewhere in that category, maybe 74. My mom knew a veterinarian really well, so I was pretty young at the time, but I was allowed to work at the animal hospital. I assisted them eventually with surgeries. I helped them do blood work stuff. I helped them do scans. I wasn't even technically a technician, but the owner of the animal hospital knew me very well, knew my family, and they put me on it. They said, look, you're going to be a veterinarian, so, get to it. Let's go. Let's get you into everything. And when I got out of that, or I should say when I got out of that, I was still in it. Our school got a terminal from the University of Maryland's mainframe, and I wasn't allowed to touch it because I wasn't in trigonometry, and which was a requirement at that time. And a friend of mine he gave me the password. I went to the guidance officer, and I said, can I use the terminal down here? It's a terminal. It's not a computer. It's hooked to a mainframe. And they said, sure, I don't know how to use it. Go ahead. So I put in the password, and it worked. And I taught myself from that mainframe at the University of Maryland how to program. So I was probably the first hacker, okay? But I've got a better lesson out of that, and I learned more things about how to work from a blank screen and make something. And I went on, instead of being a veterinarian and using all that biology I knew, I became a programmer, developer for some of the largest companies in the world and some of the largest organizations in the world. We did one of the first HIPAA rules that nurses use, the healthcare network. We actually developed the entire network so people could hunt for HIPAA rules and things of that order. And we were behind all that. So my knowledge of both the biological side, the scientific side, and being able to start with a blank screen and build something, I brought together to put together this product. That's how I did it.
Wow. That is an amazing journey. I can't even imagine what that journey looks like or could have been like from beginning to where you are now. That's a major accomplishment. Congratulations. I think it's phenomenal. And also I want to ask you about, do you get calls from caregivers? How do you
Sure.
handle? How does that work?
Well, the strangest thing we had happen, I would love to get calls from lots of caregivers, to be honest with you. I think this is, I had a friend, and I'll back up a little bit, but before I came up with this product, I had a friend that had Parkinson's and dementia with Lewy bodies. He was in the military. He came in contact with Agent Orange, which most people don't know is actually also on Aberdeen, Maryland's proving grounds, and that's where he was. He was involved in moving big trucks back and forth, and he carried the Agent Orange back and forth inside that base. And, of course, it was made here before it went to Vietnam to be used as a defoliant. But he came in contact with it. He got very bad. He had dementia so bad he would argue with the mirrors in the house. Looking at the mirror, he wouldn't know who he was. He would just argue with that person in the mirror for hours. And I finally told his wife, just cover all the mirrors with Christmas paper or something, Don't let him see the mirrors. And once he stopped seeing them, he was fine. But then he'd get out of the house and take off, and I finally got him an air tag and glued it to the back of his watch because I said he was very touchy. He didn't like things changed. So we glued it to the back of his watch, and that way if he got out of the house, we could find him. And eventually he succumbed to Parkinson's and dementia and passed away.
Oh.
And great buddy, great friend of mine. And to see that happen and to see the caregiver, which the caregiver was beside herself. She was trying to work a job, trying to make money,
Listen,
and yet,
you're preaching to the choir. I just finished taking care of my aunt, one of my family members, and she had a diagnosis. So listen, it took me, I don't know, a long time to recover.
Yes.
I'm still, of course, not fully recovered, but it took a long time when I moved out of the house and got where I am. I mean, it was like I couldn't even barely get up to make my own breakfast. I was so darn exhausted. And so I understand what you're saying when it comes to the agitation, being agitated and screaming and hollering. I understand because I know that their brain cannot understand. Of course, their brain is not functioning. They don't know that they're speaking to the family member or they're speaking to someone that they know. and they
Right.
will continue to go, berserk on you, but you gotta stay calm. And so I would always work with the doctors and tell them what's going on, and they would help me. They helped me so very much, and I really appreciate all the help from the Alzheimer's Foundation. They were just so much help all during the night, and it's a journey. It's a real journey. It really is.
No, you're exactly right, and I think that my friend's wife, who was taking care of him, I mean, there were multiple times that she just broke down. She
Wow.
couldn't deal with it anymore. She was like, "This is just, it's too much. I don't know what to do." And he had a bad habit of becoming violent. He was in the
Mm.
army. He was a big guy. And, sometimes he would not recognize, well, not sometimes, most of the time he wouldn't recognize his wife. So he'd go like, "Get out of my house. Why are you in my house?" And he would
Mm.
start getting quite violent about it.
Right.
So, and they gave him a medicine that was it was like 1,000 a month or something like that. But it had so many side effects. It was horrible.
Oh.
I mean, the side effects with some of these things is incredible.
Mm.
And I, and she would, unfortunately, as a caregiver, ask him questions like, and I won't use her name, but she would say like, "Is my name Betty?" And of course, he'd just say yes. And is that person on the TV screen that also has dementia is Bruce Willis? You're watching Die Hard, right? Is that Bruce Willis? Yeah, he would say. And I said, stop asking him that way. Ask him who the person is. Ask him who you are. Because, of course, he's going to say yes. He knows he doesn't have the answer. So he's just going to say yes. So part of the way you approach people with dementia and Alzheimer's is you ask them a question that they have to pull from their own brain the answer. In other words, who is that on the screen?
Mhm.
What's my name?
Mhm.
Where do you live?
Mhm.
Those kind of things are key to making sure they answer the question the way. And if they go, "I don't know where I live," or they pick a place that's in the past, "I live in Kentucky." No, you used to live in Kentucky. Where do you live now? "I
Mhm.
don't know." And see, that's part of the key. And it's what I tell people taking the My Brain Restore that they buy. I say, if the person has Alzheimer's or dementia, make sure you're asking the right questions. Keep a log. Find out little things that they start improving on first. And it's going to be minor things. They might remember your name. They
Mhm.
might remember something that, is recent. And most of the time, these are recent memory issues, not long-term memory issues.
Mhm.
Sometimes dementia people could tell you, how they rode a bicycle and what hill they went up to and what school they went to, but they can't tell you where they live. And it's very unusual the way dementia picks itself. But in Alzheimer's, obviously short-term memories and things can just non-exist. And what our product does is it focuses on a new system. Even though the mice were dissected and they figured out how it worked, I went further with it to figure out, well, how did the mice's brains get clear? How did that happen? How did my brain get clear? And I discovered that in 2012, which is very recent in the medical community, I mean, anything that recent is pretty crazy, discovered what's called the glymphatic system, which is like the lymphatic system, but
Mm.
it's a special system called the glymphatic system, discovered in 2012 in Norway and rediscovered in another animal in May of 2025 in the US that actually clears all these things from the brain that are causing the problem. And they're even saying it may help on stroke victims because it helps clear some of the leftover components from the stroke to get it out of the brain.
Mm.
And that system is like a drain in your sink. If it gets clogged, nothing goes down. And the more it's clogged, the worse the condition gets. And they believe that is the holy grail of what's happening with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and even stroke victims, and even other things that they're working on. This is what they're trying to figure out how to fix it. But then I put the pieces together and realized, well, that's how the mice got cured. How can you clear 3 neurological diseases with one product? That's the part that got me because I'm like, there has to be a common pathway. And once I understood what they did in Norway and in the US with this glymphatic system, it made sense. That's what was clearing up the brain. That's the function that happened. And the brain started to fix itself. Now, taking that back to your questioning, do I have caregivers using it? What I started noticing on our website was the name. When they put in their name, they put in DR. And I'm like, these are doctors buying my product. And I got to talk to one of the doctors, and one of those doctors was he was a retired neurosurgeon. And he said, I take it every day. I take your product, my Brain Restore, every day because I know nothing else works. I'm a neurosurgeon.
Oh, wait a minute.
And I'm like,
Oh.
and I said, well, how are you doing with it? And he goes, I'm doing well. My strength has improved. I'm doing a whole lot better. He was treating it for Parkinson's. And he said, I'll tell you one thing. Being who I am, I can tell you that the brain can repair itself if you can get those things out of the brain. They break down in the bloodstream, it breaks down in the liver, and it'll get rid of it. But it's stuck, and I agree with what you're doing, and that's why I buy your product. And I also had a woman who also was involved from the PhD doctor side, and she said that for the first time ever, and she has Parkinson's, she was able to let go of her partner's hand while walking a nature trail and walk down it by herself. And she said, I'd never been able to do that. And these are the heartwarming stories that come from what we're doing and making. And I've asked all of them, are you having any side effects or something? They're like, no. Sometimes you get a little gassy when you first start it. Oh, okay, it's a fiber, it's a seed, sort of like Metamucil in a way. In that regard, so your body has to get used to the fiber component of it, but it's a natural seed. And I guess that's what continues to drive me. I really, really want to see caregivers to get involved in this because it would help their life so much. I watched, my friend as a caregiver just break down so many times. It was so horrible to watch someone they knew, that they loved, that they married, and all of a sudden they didn't know who they were. And they were violent. I mean, violent was a problem with that person. And that happens. But you also feel disheartened. You don't remember my name. You don't remember us being together 30 years. Mm-hmm. No. You're my grandmother. You don't remember I'm your granddaughter. It hurts. It's incredible.
Well, maybe I can connect you with some people. I just went to an event maybe like 2 months ago, the Dignified Dementia Academy, and the young lady, she's the founder because she founded the academy because her husband he was diagnosed with dementia, and so I think she would be a great person to connect. I love to connect people where individuals are going to be helped, and so I think that you and her would have a wonderful and great conversation. Because, of course, she is in touch with a lot of caregivers. Caregiving is very difficult. Of course, it's hard. And I first started with my husband, and so that was many years ago. He had juvenile diabetes and he had multiple strokes. And so I get it, And so I heard you say that your product, your supplement can help individuals that have suffered a stroke as well.
Yes, that's what it seems to be indicating, that the same glymphatic system does support that. Now, they never tested it in the mice, but because it uses the same system, and the mice obviously cured 3 different neurological diseases, they never tested it on strokes. But there's a connection there, and the connection is that same system, which doctors are now looking at. Well, if we can get that to clear, it might help stroke victims recover quicker. And faster, because it would help the brain's natural way of cleaning itself work more efficient. And it may have multiple uses, but in the connection with the caregiver person you're talking about, and then working with dementia, these are the people I'd really like to work with. I'd like them to, even if they have a nonprofit or something, we work out a deal so we can get them the product. They could do trials with it. Because the problem with this is it's a natural ingredient. Trying to get the big organizations, they just want to fund big pharma. If I go, believe me, I've talked to them before, and I've gone, I have a natural substance, can you guys, test it? No. What? It's like, well, we don't do that. We're doing multi-million-dollar research. We're doing this. Yeah, but the problem may be simpler than you realize. How did the Japanese do what they did? I mean, I know they were trying to get to that point so they could get your money as a big pharma. But, sometimes simple things, and I put it in my book. I should mention that too. If people go to mybrainrestore.com, they can hit on FAQ, they can hit on free PDFs, and everyone that's listening here can do this. Click on that, and you get the 2026 version of the book. It's just now getting out the door, and it'll be on Amazon, but it's on our site free. You can download the whole thing. Don't cost you a dime, and I want you to send it to as many people as you want.
And
Let them read about my journey.
I think that people, I want to ask them a question or two, because the listening audience have questions in their mind that they may be concerned about. People are a little skeptical and maybe a little fearful when it comes to talking about a supplement that can help things like dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. So individuals may want to know, has there been any type of medical research as far as long-term? Anyone that has taken the supplement, was there any side effects long-term? Was there any individuals that has taken this supplement? Has there been any anything that's been noticed? Someone that took it and they've been on the supplement maybe a couple of years. Have they noticed any difference as far as any side effect in them taking the supplement?
Sure, fair question. There's two ways to look at this. Number one is that the product the Japanese used was a 2,000-year-old Chinese tea from the Zizifa tree. So in one regard, it's probably one of the oldest used supplements out there on the planet in one regard. But the Chinese used it as a hot tea. What the Japanese figured out was that same seed that was cooked a lot of times or roasted or put into a hot tea of boiling water destroyed its ability to fix the mice. They figured that out day one. And they realized that taking the natural product in its natural form and grinding it and giving it to the mice solved the problem. Now, I can say this for a fact that I know that heating things does change them. And I know that in two ways. Number one, I'm allergic to pineapple. But if I get it cooked pineapple, like in sweet and sour pork as an example, I don't have any kind of allergy, response to that at all. If I eat an apple pie, not apple pie, if I eat pineapple in a drink form, I get nothing. But all of those have been processed by heat or some other component. But if I eat it raw, I break out. My son breaks out from apples. If he eats an apple, he will break out. If he eats an apple pie, he doesn't. I looked all that up, and they said it all has to do with if you heat a product, a natural fruit especially, or a seed, you change its component. You change its volatile sort of oils and everything else that's in it, and you modify it. So what was happening, even though it was safely being taken for 2,000 years, it had been modified by that cooking process. The Japanese reversed that, decided not to do that. As a matter of fact, they experimented with it. It didn't work. They tried an extract. It didn't work. They finally got down to the point of just grinding it raw in a certain way at a certain temperature, very, very cold. They were able to preserve its neurological effect. So in the mice, they had no problems and no side effects. The people taking it here have reported no side effects. And I've actually had one of the persons that we just talked about, the PhD person who also goes by the reference as a doctor, of course, because of her PhD, said that she's very sensitive to supplements. She can't take most of them that are on the market. And she says, I've had no problem with this at all. And she even ordered more than normal. And I said, are you sure about this? She goes, yeah, no, I don't have any side effects at all. It doesn't bother me in any way. I'm perfectly fine with it.
But
so,
how long
it hasn't gotten that long-term of testing because it's so new.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have that in its form that it is now. In other words, in this more natural form. But on the other hand, we need to look at this, and I'll give you a reference point that's in the book. In England, they would sail around the world and annoy every other country, right? That's the best way to put it. They would sail around and look for gold and, spread their whatever, and they tried to take over everybody. In doing so, those sailors, over a 200-year span, 2 million you can believe this number, and you can look it up on Google, 2 million of them died from scurvy. 2 million, okay? And that is an incredible number because of one problem they figured out how to solve. They started putting on the ship lemons and limes, and they realized that the vitamin C that they were missing while on a long voyage was killing them. And they were eating fish, and they were eating meats and things and preserved food, but they had no fresh vegetables. So scurvy came from the lack of vitamin C, and today those sailors, that 2 million sailors that died, no longer die, and explain why you call, you know, a lot of times sailors in the UK are called limeys, okay? And that's where they get that term. But your doctor will recommend minerals, vitamins, and other components to you and say, it's over the counter, it's not FDA approved, but I'm giving it to you because it's just over the counter stuff. Our stuff is over the counter because in talking to the FDA, and keep in mind I'm near Washington, D.C., I told them what we were doing, and they said, that's fine. We don't get involved in that. And that's why you see so many supplements out on the market. And I admit a lot of them are terrible. They just, you know, they're not people who suffer from those diseases that have those supplements. They're just people that are trying to market something. But I used it on myself first to make sure, A, it was work, B, it was safe. And although there's been no long-term surveys out there, I would love to work with your group that does work with dementia and Alzheimer's people. And a nonprofit I would love to work with and say, I'll supply you the product. You set up the way you want to do the trials and how you want to do it, and let's work together. Because if this works for everybody as it's working already and we don't see any problems, then we have the perfect solution. But you know, it's when you're at this stage, and I've gotten this from a lot of people, especially people overseas that have the money they can spend to buy this and ship it there because shipping's expensive to over here. Here in the U.S., we pay for shipping. But they're like, there's no other choice. You know, one person was pointing out in the UK, they had done experiments on a repurposed cancer drug, which they're doing in the United States right now, to try to fix Parkinson's. When the UK, sort of their CDC version, HHS, I think it's called, when they did the work with nurses on it and went through everything, they said the cost of the medicine, which was like $100,000, cost of monitoring it and doing else, another $100,000, plus the fact that it only cured 35% of the people using this repurposed cancer drug, was not worth the time of day.
Wow.
They actually axed it. They said, no, we're not supporting it, and we're not going to do it, and we're not going to pay for it. So here was something Big Pharma had come up with, had a 35% cure rate, but the cost was out of line with people. And you look in the U.S. here, we don't really know where we're at medical-wise with the insurance. I mean, nobody knows what they're going to get hit with next month. You know, a lot of people are going to be hurt. And so insurance companies will cut back, you know, on what they're willing to pay for. So to me, a more natural, least expensive solution became the important aspect of this. And using it and knowing what it did for me and what it's doing for my other people, I just encourage people. We don't have those kind of reports yet, but then again, we also know it's not going to hurt you. Okay, if we see any warnings, like it might cause gassiness or it is the seed, if you have any problems with seeds, that could be an issue. You know, if you have any kind of apple allergy or something, it does come from a fruit. So, you know, that's always a possibility that can, you know, cause some kind of, allergy or breakout on the lips or something like that. But so far, no people outside have reported those kind of issues. If anything, they've reported really good results from it, and more importantly, no side effects from it, even the sensitive ones. Okay,
that's good.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense. If it did have it, I'm sure in 2,000 years the Chinese would have discovered it. But, but getting it pure, first of all, I would never order anything from China that's done in a powder form. You have no idea what's in it. We buy our product. We buy the actual seed. We have sourced it from places that are willing to sell us the seed itself in its raw form. and we bring it into the United States that way, and we turn around and mill it here only, so we know exactly what's in it. We test it. We even grow test it. We show that on the website. We even, my wife has a green thumb, so she takes a sample of the seeds, and actually I hand them over to her, and she grows it, and boom, it grows.
Okay.
You know, so we know that we're getting the purest form. We know we're getting it, but we also mill it within about a 4-month period of it going out the door. We do the milling. We make sure it's very, very fresh. We seal it with a special jar we found that has a foam seal, not one of those seals that no one can get off, by the way. And it reseals itself. So we did everything we could on the U.S. side to make it as pure as possible. We ship 2-day priority mail to everyone in the U.S., so that's 2 to 3 days you're going to get it. We don't charge anyone for that. That's free. And we do that because we want to get it to them quickly, but we don't want it sitting in a hot mailbox either. You know, that's probably not good for it. But once you get it, it can be stored at room temperature. It comes with a scoop. You scoop it into pudding or yogurt. And this is what's really, really great for caregivers, because my friend who passed away from dementia and Parkinson's, my friend, if he didn't like something, he'd throw it across the room. You get some ordinary old folks, okay? And the point being is he liked pudding. He liked things like that. So I know if I could have come up with him before he passed away with this, I would have told his caregiver, just mix it in it with his pudding, put it in his yogurt. Anything he likes, it's cold. Ice cream, it's fine. As long as it stays cold, it's perfectly fine. It preserves its components.
Well, we're just about out of time. This has been such a lively and informative and educational experience and talk. I know that we're going to talk some more about the product. I want to give you an opportunity. I wanted to say this. I didn't want to forget. I want to give you an opportunity, Mark, to let the listening audience know how to contact you, your website, and how they can get the product.
Sure. The website is called mybrainrestore.com. Just make sure you put the my in there. A lot of people put brain restore. That's not it. It's mybrainrestore.com. Once you go there, you can read everything. You can buy the product. Again, don't forget to download the book for free under the FAQ. If you want to see the scientific experiments, they're under the FAQ. We have a summary of the scientific experiments. My journey's there. All the links are there for everything that we've talked about here. And my phone number is right there. We don't hide. There's no AI going to answer that phone. It is going to be myself or one of my helpers. And if you don't get us, you'll get a message, and we will call you back. We believe in talking to our people. We do not hide.
That's wonderful. That is awesome. And listen, just talking to you, I can tell, because when you worked with people that have dementia and Alzheimer's, anything that's, with the brain, I can listen to you. I said, well, my goodness, he's talking for a complete solid hour, almost a solid hour. It's like 10-2. And
correct.
So I haven't heard any stuttering. I haven't heard any hms or ha. And I'm like, this is amazing. And so.
But if you talked to me last year, you would have heard all that.
Okay.
So that's the difference. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. But I mean, all I can tell is people keep logs. Make sure you're writing everything down, your worst problems, and make sure every month when you're taking this product, you go back and see if it changed by 1%, 2%, 10%. Keep those logs, because you're going to see minor improvement, but it's not a miracle. It takes 6 months to a year. It took me a year to get to this point. But hang in there. Don't give it up. That's the most important thing for everybody.
So that's amazing. I want the listening audience to know that you heard his story and you heard about his journey, and he's been on the supplement. And all the caregivers that's out there listening, you all know what it sounds like when you talk with someone that has dementia or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. You know what the telltale signs are. And so my point to everyone that's out there and listening, you can hear that he does not have that. And so that's remarkable. And that means that what he's taking is working, and so that was my point. And so I want to congratulate you again, and I want to
Thank you.
say you're more than welcome. Anytime there's a breakthrough, something that can restore the brain, I want to hear about it, I want to know about it, and this is just fantastic. It is fabulous, and I appreciate all the hard work that you are doing and have done with this particular supplement. And he gave you the information. You guys are going to have it in the bio for the show, and you'll be able to go straight to his website. All right. And so I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be on the Fierce Female Network.
Oh, no problem. I enjoyed it very much. I'm very happy I had an opportunity to share, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to share your experiences and stuff too. We're in the same boat.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well, listen, we're pretty much out of time, but we are going to talk some more. I'm going to give you all the information, the names, and the Twitter information for Ian, the individual that works directly with. I think he's the head of it. If he's not the head, he's the main source. He's the main guy that you want to talk to because he's all about dementia and Alzheimer's. A lot of individuals that is really hard about finding a cure has it in their family, or they know someone. My point is,
Oh, everyone knows
they
someone,
know
right? You're right.
someone that's going through the struggle. And for me, it's serious. It's serious business. And so, Ian, I'm going to give you his social handle. He's mainly on X or Twitter. That's where I found him. And so I'm going to give you his social handle. I'm also going to give you the pastor's handle. She's a young lady, seasoned woman that started the academy, the Dementia Dignified Academy. I'm going to give you her email address. I'm going to let her know that I'm sending you to her, so she'll be aware, of course, and everyone will have an
Sure.
even exchange knowing what's going on. And so I'm going to give you that information as well after the show. So, Mark, thank you so much for being here. It was
Thanks for
indeed a
having me.
pleasure. You're more than welcome. So, guys, listen, thank you. And I want to make sure I don't forget to thank everyone that's listening in internationally. So many people on a consistent basis always listen in from Canada. Thank you, Canada. We have a nice little listenership in Canada. Thank you, Canada, for listening. Thank you, Poland, the individuals that's listening internationally. I thank you, UK, Australia, Poland, and Canada, and those that's listening in East and West Africa. I really do appreciate it. So, guys, I got to get on up out of here. It's been a stone cold blast. As always, from me, it is peace, love, and soul.
You motivate.